Welcome to episode number 1 of Comedians Saving the World. I'm your host, Zahan Khursigara, and I'm sitting here with actor, comedian, supermodel, Justen Williams. Justin's been in a bunch of actual TV shows, unlike most local comedians who just call themselves actors. You know, he's been getting around. You were at the Junos recently?
I was, yes.
Yeah.
It was a good time.
Yeah. No, not there for anything that you got. No accomplishments.
No, I wasn't. No, I wasn't nominated or anything.
No.
It's just it was through friends of friends who got me there, basically.
Yeah. He knows important people.
That's literally half this industry is just knowing somebody.
That's it.
Like knowing you, for instance.
That's the entertainment world, right?
Oh, yeah.
You know somebody, you get an in.
That's honestly how it is. And the more you kind of get into, I don't want to say Hollywood or like the limelight per deal, but the more that holds true. Like nepotism is a wonderful tool. So wonderful.
Yeah.
I recommend using it.
Yeah. That's how the rich stay rich, right?
Yeah. And okay, to talk about that, not even like the rich stay rich, but just how much within the industry there are plants, like people who are set up to do things, is outstanding. Like even for the Junos, there's some stuff I don't want to disclose, but basically like there were somewhat scripts of what was going to happen. So some people knew they were going to win awards before they showed up. And it's just like, hey, hype yourself up.
I wonder if they tell the people who aren't going to win.
No.
Those poor bastards just they go,
So for the bigger, yeah, exactly, right? So for the Junos, for instance, there was 2 days, okay? And when I was just talking to certain individuals after the Junos, they had mentioned that they had been told through a different person that they were going to win. And because we're comedians, so the comedy album, nobody knew who was going to win. So I don't know how they know, and I don't know who told them. But for some people, they don't know, like genuinely don't know. But others have a feeling, or like somebody somewhere told them. It's really interesting. And the Junos are considered a small scale award, big in Canada, but by overall
Right.
Small. Like SZA won an award, but she didn't show up.
I don't even know who that is.
She's like, I think she's R&B or something.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure.
I'm old, man. I don't pay attention to these new artists.
I didn't know how to pronounce her name. It was SZA.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Yeah, I was like, SZA.
I just would have said SZA. There's no consonants.
Yeah, and they're like, SZA.
Oh,
And I'm
no,
like,
it's all consonants. No vowel. No,
There's a vowel,
it's at the
yeah.
end, but there's not an in-between vowel that you need there.
it breaks the English rule.
It does.
And
It
I'm
does.
like, oh, okay.
It's very Slavic.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't think she's Slavic. Maybe she is. Maybe she's Slovenian.
Who knows? Is she white?
No.
Unlikely then.
That doesn't mean anything.
No. I'm not here to judge.
Although I feel like as comedians, this is what we do. Like, we judge the world and we talk about it.
It'd be much less funny if we didn't.
Honestly.
Just doing jokes about tables and chairs and very PG jokes. The whole world would just be a bunch of Bill Cosby's molesting people, you know.
Oh my God, that was sad. But no, yeah, exactly. So the thing with comedy in that sense is you have to look at the world from an objective lens and then judge it. So it's this really weird fake filtering thing. Like, I know a bunch of comedians who you see them on stage and you're like, this person's crazy. And then you talk to them after and you're like, oh, they're just a normal human being. This is a persona they're playing. But then on the flip side, I've seen comedians who do stuff on stage and I'm like, oh, this person's crazy. And then you meet them and they're fucking nuts.
Yeah.
I can't remember who this gentleman was. And I think he's dead now, honestly. But I worked with him a couple times in Oshawa at a place called Crazy Jack's. And he was a high-rise machine operator.
Yeah, that'd make you crazy.
Right. And he would just tell us about the amount of like cocaine he would do while he was on the job. Because he was saying, he's like, I only work for like 2 minutes a day, 3 minutes a day. Like I move 1 or 2 things. And that's it.
Was he like a crane operator?
Yeah. Like a high-rise machine.
Well, that makes you feel safe, right?
Honestly. So we're like,
Sitting up there doing coke for 19 hours straight. Well, I guess you gotta stay awake.
buddy. I was like, what do you do? And he's like, I drink water, Coke, and pee in a bottle. Like that's all I do. And I was like, how do you operate? And he's
Yeah,
like,
those guys aren't allowed to like get out of the crane once they're in there because it takes like a good amount of time, from what I understand, just to get into the crane.
yeah, it takes a couple.
So they pee in a bottle. I guess they poop in a bucket. I don't know.
Him and I weren't that close.
Yeah, you can get into the poops. Just
Not.
number ones only.
Well, it was the thing because he told me randomly about it because it was the time of 2 brothers. So when I just got in the role, and when you just get a role, everyone becomes your friend.
Of course.
Like exes were coming out of the woodwork talking to me like, "Oh my God, I'm such a huge fan." It's like, no, I didn't see you at that show. Like
Yeah,
you
right.
never.
Now you're not you don't have a current role, right?
I mean, we just finished season 2 last year.
People are going to be at the show tonight.
Season 2 is coming out in June. Check it out. I only have, I think, 13 seconds of screen time this season, though.
Not too many people at the show tonight.
Not too many. That was a creative choice. So the thing is, especially because it's an independent project, actually, that'd be a great person to have on here is Andrew Meikle, the writer of that show. From my understanding, what it goes through a bunch of different processes, and it'll depend on what character they want to highlight for what backstory of that season. Because season 1 was fine, but now you start doing character development for season 2, which is typically season 2 for most shows gets almost the worst ratings because primarily for most of them they're all just like character development, unless it's after like a comic book or something, or it already has like a structured flow.
Okay,
so. With this, it was like the same thing that they're building backstories and characters. And I play, if you've seen the show, I played the villain. So
I have not seen the show.
Oh, wow.
I'm not going to lie to you about it.
No, I appreciate that. Most people like, you have it, you haven't. It's
yeah. But back to what you were just talking about, how comedians are very different oftentimes from what you see on stage.
Right.
That's what this show's about.
Yes.
So the idea is here, for those of you who are watching for the first time, since it's the first episode, that we want to peel back the layers of the onion and get to something real with comedians, right? We don't need to hear your dick jokes today. We can, but we don't need to. We want to know about something you're passionate about. What do you think could change the world, change a part of the world, make the world a better place in some tiny little way? Maybe you want to make it a worse place. I've had one comedian reach out to me and said, I want the world to burn. And I said, well, let's discuss how.
I want to start with Central Russia, burn out that way.
Right? Yeah.
Wow, changing the world in itself. So for a little context for people, I am an electrical engineer. Technically, I'm an electrical engineering technician, technologist, and I have my bachelor's. So it's like the trifecta of engineering. With that being said, there isn't much I could do aside from renewable energy sources, but that's not really what I'm passionate about. I'm also a high school teacher, which is part of my passion, but something that I feel like would change the world in a very weird sense is if we just exposed every conspiracy theory for being right or wrong. Because I feel like that's what holds up a lot of people in terms of, and it causes a lot of separation.
Right.
And if there's separation, there's controlled chaos. From controlled chaos, there's anarchy.
My biggest conspiracy theory, personally, is just the conspiracy that all conspiracy theories are put out by the government to distract the public with complete nonsense while they just go about regular day-to-day business without people bothering them because they're so worried about chemtrails and the aliens who live underground and all the crazy shit they're worried about.
Yeah.
And instead of worrying about, the vote that's actually happening tomorrow that they could go make a difference on.
Yeah.
That's my personal thought, but most conspiracy theorists think I'm crazy,
Well, that's the thing. So I wouldn't consider myself a conspiracy theorist, but you are correct. Like, look at any time there's a big election, something happens.
Right.
Whether that be locally here in Canada or domestically around the United States, which, by the way, the United States politics is my favorite reality TV show. On
Everybody's, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Nobody
amazing.
watches Canadian politics.
No. Like, sometimes I forget who's running.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we have a prime minister. But anyways, like, for instance, because we're both in the industry, talk about, like, Britney Spears and George Bush. So during the whole 9/11 thing, she just, shortly after that, went buck wild.
Right.
Like, shaved her head and then got married to Kevin Federline or I guess Kevin Federline then shaved her head and all that situation. But that has been popping up all the time, right? We're like Kanye West, for instance, when he was like, I'm going to run for president and then never really did. And it's like, okay. And then people are saying that Kanye is like a scapegoat now because he does certain things, and Cat Williams calling everybody out in the industry for they're all like conspiracy theorists and stuff of the Illuminati and everything. So it's really kind of come to light in the sense of how much of this is true. And to double down on this point too, during the pandemic, the government came out and was just like, hey, I know you're going through something right now, but also aliens exist. And we were so freaked out about whatever COVID was. We were like, we
didn't even pay attention.
Yeah, we didn't care.
Yeah.
We're like, circle back in 2 years when we figure this out.
Yeah.
Unless they're going to come down with a vaccine or something.
They also redacted all the useful information.
About which one?
Aliens.
Did they?
Yeah, they released all the documents.
That I saw.
But they were redacted documents. So, you could go through them and you kind of piece things together. So there's still kind of a lot of conspiracies that came out of it. Right? From what I saw. And again, I really didn't dive too deep into it. I was too busy fighting with people about vaccines. I was pro-vaccine.
Yeah.
So I was fighting with people who weren't taking the vaccine.
I
Now
mean,
I no longer care.
I don't care either, right? To be honest, I mean, that's a whole different story in itself. I can run a whole podcast just off that.
We could, yeah.
But like, I guess it's almost like beating a dead horse. I feel like it's for the most part over.
Yeah, I hate one thing I hate is when comics go up and still doing vaccine jokes.
Oh my God, yeah.
I'm like, dude, that was like so long ago.
Dude, that was so 2020. Like, move on. If you're still doing a joke from 2020 that isn't relevant, move the fuck on.
Yeah, get a new job.
Literally, there's some comedians who I'm like, I've heard that joke for like I don't know 8 years now. Like, what are you doing?
It's like comedians who go on stage and do that joke about, would you blow somebody for $1 million? Like, man, that's something high school kids say to each other. I've heard about 12 comedians have some sort of version of that in the last 6 months alone.
I mean,
but you know,
the whole premise of like, what would you do kind of deal is kind of interesting.
So what would you do
Go on.
to deal with this issue regarding conspiracy theories?
Well, so
circling back.
Yeah, I was actually just trying to like make that leap back to it. Actually, I was gonna be like,
go.
speaking of something interesting. So like, how would I do it? Okay, so let's say I have a magic wand. Okay, and for whatever reason, I have the ability to illuminate the conspiracy theories, like even down to the smallest minute. But we'll go with the biggest ones. Let's go with the 27 Club, for instance. So people who in the 27 Club, those who don't know, are musicians who died at 27. Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse. This goes on and on. Tupac, I think he's 27.
Who would be the first one? The guy in the, what was his name? I'm thinking Lenny Kravitz, but it's definitely not Lenny Kravitz.
John Morrison?
Well, guitar player.
Jimi Hendrix?
Hendrix,
yeah.
He actually died a few blocks from my dad's house in England. My dad was living there, and he's like, saw the police, and he's like, oh, what's going on there? He found out Hendrix was in a bathtub.
Okay.
Yeah. He may have had something to do with it. I've seen his pictures. He looked like a 70s spy, but everyone kind of looked like Austin Powers back then.
Oh my gosh, yes, right. But he was also one of those people who, like, one of his lyrics, it was misheard, and he's like, I think something to do with the lyric was like, I'll kiss that dude or I'll kiss that man or something. And this was during the era of like free love kind of deal, but still free love if you were straight.
Right.
So some people who I went on a whole deep dive about this were just like, he was killed off for promoting homosexuality. Yeah. So, I mean, whether that be true or not.
I guess Queen was after that.
Yeah.
Right? Probably about the next generation.
But even still, Eddie Murphy didn't come out for a while.
Eddie Murphy?
Eddie Murphy?
we were terrible with names. Freddie Mercury.
Freddie Mercury. I don't
know if Eddie Murphy's out yet.
I don't know. So, well, I just read he has like, what, I think 8 kids?
Does he?
Yeah, I was watching a whole thing about it.
He can afford it.
Oh, honestly, man. After like...
Elon has like 30 now, I'm sure.
Does? I know he has... Oh my God.
He just keeps having kids. He doesn't care.
He's a billionaire.
He can afford to repopulate the planet Genghis Khan style and still give all his kids $1 million or something.
He might. I mean, that chip thing's coming around, which is also another conspiracy theory. But anyways, how would I deal with the conspiracy theory back to it? So if I had a magic wand and I could kind of relive it, I would make it so every person who had the answers had to give the answers. So one of the biggest ones in contention, 9/11, was it an inside job? Somebody somewhere knows that, or at least knows how to find the documentation for that, because something that had to be documented. That aliens, another one. I'd be like, are they real?
Now, do you think that the general public can handle the truth? That's the question.
I don't care. I mean,
like, would it cause more drama? Like, if they came out and they go, aliens have been running our government and they have a shadow government and this and that. This is the truth about it. Whatever. You guys are right. Would that cause like complete panic? Would people go nuts? Some people, I'm sure, would.
Yeah.
Right. But I guess the truth, once it comes up, once people accept it.
Yeah.
The truth shall set you free, right?
And that's, well, I was going to go in that situation. I think all of us have been through a breakup at some point. And whether you've been the one to get dumped or the dumper, at some point you have to come to a realization that this isn't working.
Yeah. And this is reality.
This is reality. And you can sit there and think about what could be, but that's just going to spin your tires going nowhere. So in this situation, I feel like if the government were to come out and be like, hey, here is every conspiracy, like, or at least popular conspiracy theory that we're dealing with right now. Here's the truth behind it. People are going to panic. People are going to freak out.
But they'd have to, I mean, I don't even think people would believe it.
Well, that's the thing. But at that point, you give them the information, right?
Well, I mean, you put out information. If it's like religion. Conspiracy theories are a form of religion, like indoctrination that you give yourself.
Sure.
Like if you believe something enough,
Yeah.
it's true regardless. So if I came out as I'm the government, I come out and go, aliens are real, chemtrails are real, but
Shadow government's real.
sure, but like, let's pick one that's not real. The 27 Club's not real.
Okay.
Right? And you're one of those people who's like, no, the 27 Club's legit. They're just trying to hide that one because it's so important. They don't want people to know, right? Like, people still, like, how do you get people to actually accept it?
At that point, you can't.
That's the thing, right? You can never, the human condition is to doubt.
Well, the first step's denial.
Right.
Right? Because everybody, like, to some degree, has a hard time accepting new information, especially when it goes against the beliefs of your own. That's just natural. To be like, you're wrong, your first instinct is to be like, no, I did my oh, no, you're right. People have different ways of accepting. Most arguments start from people just not being able to accept that maybe there's a different view on something. But then that opens a door of being right versus wrong versus there's something in between. So to your point, should there be an example where the government comes out and does be like, everything is real, except the 27 Club, that was actually just really fluky. You will have people that are obviously not believing that. And why would they? If the government just came out being like, we've been lying to you, accept that, that's the truth, I would be hesitant too. That's like if my partner were to cheat on me, come out and be like, it was only one person. Don't look at my phone.
Right.
And you're like, okay, wait, hold on a second. Right? So.
Yeah. It was only John. Tim's a friend.
Yeah, Tim's a friend. Tim's a friend.
Yeah.
What? I have photos of him in my phone. What about it? Like,
yeah.
But no, that's my point though. So it comes down to the mass controlling of information, as you mentioned. I do feel like as a society, especially given the fact the internet and we can access things, if you want to argue it, some people go on the dark web and find horrible things.
Sure.
People have access to the internet and access to information. Why not get it from the source? If the government's controlling everything, controlling all the information we have, let it loose. You might spark anarchy.
See, what you want is real freedom of the press.
That'd be awesome, yeah. That'd be totally great. I feel like that would solve most of the problems. It's like, oh, we have so... Something that I guess in this case we'd be passionate about would be Toronto. You're in construction. You know how much like how housing is right now. It's absolutely trash. Like I wanted to buy a house. My realtor was like, go buy a tent. Like it's way cheaper that way.
So I was on someone else's podcast. I don't know if you know Paul Gano.
Yeah.
He's Mississauga as well.
Yeah.
Good guy. So I was on his podcast and we actually got into the real estate discussion.
Okay.
And I'll give you the same advice I gave him.
Sure.
Buy a house in a different country.
Yeah, no, exactly.
That's what I told him because he was like, I want to buy a house. I said, well, the housing market here is so overinflated that when you do the math, even if you're going to live, because like, oh, I'm going to live in the house, not rent it. Okay, I get it. Like if it's rental property, you look at the numbers.
Sure.
But even when you live in it, if you can rent for cheaper than your mortgage is, then you got to put taxes on top. You got to put repairs on top, all this stuff. Now, a tenant doesn't have to pay for most of those repairs. They don't pay the taxes. You pay your utilities, whatever. That's your consumables, right? But if you're saving $1,000, $2,000 a month by renting, it doesn't make sense to buy, right? Landlords are losing money if they're buying in this market.
Yeah.
If you go to a place like Spain, Portugal, Italy, you can make 20% on your money. So that money you were going to invest in the house here, just rent your house here, invest it over there in a place like that, in Costa Rica, wherever, and make a good return. You're still in the real estate market, just not in this overinflated one.
And what did Paul say about that? Was he like?
He said, that's a great idea. I got to look more into that.
I can see him saying that.
And he probably never looked into it again.
Never once. I want to be on his podcast so badly. I just want to reach out. I don't want to be like, hey.
That's what I did. I was like, hey, man, can I come in your podcast?
That's what you did?
Yeah.
Okay. Fortune favors the bold.
That's it. If you don't ask, you don't get, right?
Yeah, that's it.
So what we're doing right now is asking the governments to release all information.
Freedom of speech. Fourth branch.
Now, do you think that it would change the world any if people knew the truth about things? Do you think people would be more apt to do things because they'd just be more comfortable? You'd trust the government, I guess, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. Like, would you trust a shady boss?
No, I guess not.
Right.
Right.
So the government.
So the issue really isn't the conspiracy theories. The issue is the lack of open and honest communication.
Well, it's kind of a bit of a full circle thing.
Yeah.
Because if the government set up these conspiracies to distract us, and then we could eventually pull back the curtain, and they're like, okay, these were actually whatever it is. So if they pull that back, then we're okay with it. Obviously, there'll be like a healing phase, and we go through couples therapy with the government, and we figure it out eventually. But in like maybe not our
We'd
generation.
have a French Revolution, just chop off all their heads and start anew.
Pretty much, if the government were to be like, here's the conspiracies, they're all true, all of us are resigning, you would have a new wave of people coming
Well, you know
in.
what? I think the government that opened those curtains,
Yeah.
people would respect them. It'd be all the guys in the back who are sitting there, the MPs who've been there for 25 years who hadn't said anything. They better watch their backs.
Oh, yeah, that's a fair point too.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take
But
that.
either way, yeah.
Either way, right?
Yeah.
Let's say the United Nations. Let's get
Sure.
every leader involved.
Sure.
Everybody shows up and they're like, "Hey, here are like the number one like conspiracies, like top 50, whatever it is," and they reveal them. Like, here's all the documentation. Blah 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 blah. We understand there's going to be like a bit of some question periods right now. We're open to it. And then a year later, they had like a repress with like a bunch of people like posing their questions. That would begin the healing process, and we'd be like, "Oh, okay, we can now."
But where do you draw the line between freedom of information and national security? Right? That's always the question.
Right.
Because the reason that they don't tell you things is national security.
One of my biggest issues, especially with my last relationship, my biggest issue was she would make decisions for me.
Unilaterally, yeah.
Yeah, she would think that she knows better than me. And it's like, the only one person who knows better than me is me. Ask me questions. Again, but this is where like we talked about earlier about defending your own point kind of deal and thinking you're right. Mm-hmm. In this case, it's the same respect to the government. It's like, you can't tell me what I know best. Like, in this case, give me all the information.
No, but the national security isn't for you. It's to protect let's say the USA, because they're the...
Yeah.
No one cares about. We probably have no secrets. We're holding a few secrets for America, probably. But, the U.S. government's saying, okay, well, we can't release this information because we don't want the Russians to know and the Chinese to know and this guy and that guy. We don't know what they know. And if we release our information, they don't release theirs. It's just like being a Fortune 500 company.
Yeah.
Right? So, and I understand where they're coming from.
Of course.
Right, like, Coke and Pepsi, obviously, they both have their secret ingredients. And you heard a few years back some Coke employees were disgruntled and tried to sell the secret ingredient to Pepsi.
I didn't know that.
No?
No.
So instead of buying it, they tried to sell it for like $200 million or something like that. Instead of buying it, Pepsi called the FBI and got all those people arrested.
Amazing. Good on Pepsi.
Yeah. Because they were like, I'm sure they already know what the secret ingredient is anyways. They've got hundreds of billions of dollars in labs set up around the world. They could figure out like one ingredient that makes Coke different from Pepsi.
Yeah.
But those are the kind of things that you have to figure out. Okay, what's national security and what's not? And the whole idea, I guess, behind conspiracy theories is to quell the masses, right? Because if you confuse the masses, you're able to govern them.
Yes.
If people are all independent thinkers, how are you going to govern anybody? Everyone's going in different directions. That's since Roman times. That's kind of been the model, right? Religion, allegedly, astrology, all these things. I'm not going to get into specific things and get people hating on me because so many people are going to be watching episode number 1 right now.
Yeah, a couple 100,000. Why not?
At least, right? But these things are there to give people perspectives. Like the governments will say, okay, this is the way it is, and it gives you a perspective and it gives you a baseline of life.
Yep.
Right? But if they give you nothing and your mind's all over the place, it becomes very, very complicated, obviously, to manage the populace.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that's what, and then people, like you said, like, there is value to knowing what's happening.
Of course, yeah.
And being able to make informed decisions as a population. I agree with you. In an ideal utopian society, the government will be forthright and honest with you. Like, aliens exist. This is how we've been dealing with them. Yep. This is how we plan to deal with them in the future. Let's have a vote on it.
Which, I mean, given the fact that X exists, I feel like every government decision should be made through a poll.
Oh, yeah. The only problem is that what worries me about that is most of the people who actually go on and vote for those things are very uneducated people who are just, they don't understand the actual issues.
Right.
They just, they see blustering people on TV like Trump, or it could be Trudeau, it could be anyone, whoever their leader is. And, whether you're a Biden guy or Trump guy, if you're into that guy, whatever he says, you're going to believe, and you're not going to believe the other guy, whichever one's telling the truth. They might both be telling a version of the truth, right?
Yeah.
But if you don't take the time to actually research it and learn about it and come up with your own opinion, your opinion is worthless.
And that's part of that's very well said. And that's part of the problem too, is some people, like, they put all their eggs in one basket with that one person. Like, oh, this one person really represents me. And whatever they say has to be true because they have a cabinet. They have people behind them doing the research for them, and together they came together and definitely came up with the most apropos thing for us, the right thing. And that couldn't be more from the truth. Like I've seen people who I've idolized in the industry, like when I got to meet them, and they're like, I just like for their music, for instance, I'm like, oh, that was so profound, and they're like, man, I was high when I wrote that, and I was like, oh,
the words just rhymed really well.
that's it, and I was like, oh, okay, like you didn't when you said this, and they're like, I didn't even know I said that. And I was like, and like they're like, or like they forgot that they had said that lyric, and they're like, oh yeah, that one, yeah, I don't know, just threw it in there. It's like, oh, okay.
Never meet your heroes, right?
And that's kind of, that's why I haven't met my father.
Yeah.
So. I'm just kidding. I love you, Dad. But yeah, so, and like, those are kind of the bigger government conspiracy theories, like the Illuminati, the alien government control and all that fun stuff. But then you kind of get into like what I consider the fun kind of conspiracy theories that wouldn't really hurt anybody and nobody would care about them. Like the 1985 Patrick Ewing New York Knicks conspiracy theory, the frozen envelope. Nobody cares. Like that, no one's gonna start an anarchy riot, burn cars for that if the government or NBA was just like, yeah, actually, we cheated. You might have like 4 people being like, but for the most part, nobody's gonna care.
Yeah, maybe start with the easy ones.
Yeah, legitimately ease it into the we're not swimming lessons. We're not gonna,
at the end of the day, to be honest, if they were like, yeah, the Illuminati's real, we're running the world, what are you gonna do about it?
There'd be some people being like, fucking do it. Like, you're like, all right, cool.
I'm just feeling like, all right, well, the world's running okay. I mean, what am I gonna do? But you're not gonna. That's the first question. Is, excuse me, can we do anything about that? No. All right, then back to work.
Still 9 to 5 though. All right.
Yeah.
Well, again, one of the conspiracies that I feel like would kind of also change the world is the fact that we unite everyone's currency.
Yeah.
So the euro did that, and I was reading about this a while ago. I think in like I want to say 60s or 70s, there was the talk about doing the Americano.
Yeah, it was a world currency. So from what I read, and I guess we'll both have to piece it together from what we read a long time ago.
Figure it out. 2 uneducated idiots. Let's do it.
Geniuses. What I read was after World War II.
Yeah, same.
The world governments kind of came together, I guess, with the United Nations in mind and all that sort of thing. And they said, let's have one currency. And at the time, America didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
Because they were like, their currency was worth a lot more. All the countries who had had value were like, meh, I don't know.
Yeah.
It just didn't work. Egos, like anything else in the world, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think we need currency.
No, we don't.
Right?
Let's go back to a barter and trade system.
Well, no, I wouldn't do that. I'm talking about well, I think we're going there. My current conspiracy theory, which I wouldn't call it a conspiracy theory, it's my theory on what's going to happen. My future forward-looking theory is that we're moving to communism.
Okay.
Thanks to capitalism.
Any other isms? Because of autism.
Because of autism. Well, the way I look at it is capitalism is creating AIs and technology to replace humans.
Correct.
In the workplace to save money. For the simple purpose of saving money and being more efficient, make more money. People aren't working. They can't spend money.
Yep.
People need money to spend to survive.
Yep.
How do they get it? The government has to give it to them.
Yep.
Communism.
That's fair. Also, on that piggyback AI thing real quick, there's a conspiracy theory about that in the sense that there's an overpopulation crisis right now.
Right.
So one of the ways to get rid of the people is you can't do what China did and be like, you can't have kids. So essentially they're going to make it free will of the people. If you make AI to take away jobs, no reason to have kids, no reason to push forward in the economy, hike everything up so you can't afford to have more kids, squeeze people until they're like, I just don't want a family. I just want me and like maybe one person who I don't hate. You're like, all right, cool. And do that for like 200 years, 300 years. And then be like, all right, everything kind of reset itself. Yep, bring it back.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case, but
it's just. I'm saying it's conspiracy. Yeah,
it doesn't make sense to me.
I didn't say it did, but I'm like,
there's so many conspiracy theories. I see what you're saying, but like when you look at something like that, it's
not practical by any sense.
No, it's not practical. I mean, there's just so many easier ways to do it.
Yeah, but Reddit's a weird place to find conspiracies, and it's fun to kind of go down.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing with chemtrails and all that stuff. With like, they're putting this stuff in it to make us.
Stupider.
No, what's when you're not virile? What's the opposite?
Oh, fertile.
Infertile, yes. So they're trying to make us infertile, so they put stuff in the chemtrails, so it goes into our food. I'm like, why won't they just pump it into the water, right at the water facility? That seems so much easier than sending a plane up in the air.
Legitimately. Wasn't the whole like the pandemic too? Like, wasn't that part of it?
Yeah,
the vaccines.
Trying to kill us all with vaccines, and so we can't have more babies, and then everyone had a lot more babies. It didn't make any difference. It made no difference to anybody. I don't think the vaccine.
No,
whether you got it or not, I think everyone got COVID and got a flu and moved on. But
yeah, basically.
I don't know if it worked or not, but
yeah, I mean,
I did my part.
I needed a job, so and I was working in healthcare.
Yeah.
So like I was doing security at a psych ward, and they're like, "You have to get it," and I was like, "Well, I mean, I'm making
Now
money."
there's somewhere you've got to have some good stories about.
The psych ward? Oh my god, buddy! I can go in like a whole like an hour like telling you various stories. I'd love to come back for another episode for that. Like, just
Yeah, we should do a how to save the world psych ward edition.
Well, I can tell you some quick stories if you
Sure,
want.
let's do one quick one.
One
Then
quick
we'll
one?
wrap it up.
How
'cause
many-
We've got a show coming up.
Yeah, we do. What time to be there? Oh,
We'll be there. The show starts at 7. It's 6:23.
oh, damn.
So we got to set up soon. So let's do one quick story.
Here's the thing: like you and I like to talk as comedians. Like this time was we should. I need like 3 hours.
Yeah.
Anyways, so working time at the psych ward. One story that really quicks out to me is a gentleman who was sexually aroused by hard things, primarily the floor. So without giving, because I know some people from there, we still talk to each other. So without giving too much detail, too much information away, there
This
was.
is Mississauga, Toronto.
I'm not going to say.
Oh, a city in Ontario,
A city in Canada.
in Canada. All right. Very
Exactly.
vague.
I moved around.
Yeah.
So a city in Canada, there's a psych ward, and in that place, there was a gentleman who was, I can't remember what the fetish is, but very attracted to hard things, especially the feeling of them and like if they were cold. So this person would, I'm allowed to swear on this, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So he would masturbate constantly, frivolously. Like it would be chafing red. So they'd have to kind of restrain him for a bit because it was doing bodily harm to himself. So eventually, after like his ovulation period kind of just stopped, if you will, it'd be like once a week in like a month, he would just go hard, and after it would be fine. But you can tell leading up to it, he would start like pressing his penis against things. So like the wall, like the corner, the chair, the desk, the bed, and it got to the point where he would just start humping everything. Didn't matter what it was. To like nurses were scared to go in, so they'd send security in. Right, and it would have to be 2 of us. And sure enough, he would try one person hold him down.
So you got humped a couple times.
Oh, like a puppy. Like he would go from after my leg.
Actually.
Legitimately. But one day, I was working the night shift, and you never want to work a night shift in the psych ward. It
seems like a reasonable thing to say.
So everyone gets medicated, and your shift would start at like 7:30, 8. And everyone gets medicated around dinner time, and then a second medication happens around like 8, 9-ish. So after that, for sure 10 o'clock, everybody's asleep, which is fine, but it's really boring then, which is fine. But this gentleman woke up at like 3:30, and doors are locked, but he can still see us. So he's just staring outside of his window, and he starts tapping, and he calls me over. And he just waves to me. I wave back, trying to be friendly. And then he goes back to his room, which is dark. I can't really see it. And I'm like, okay, he's gone to bed. I get a call to go into the nursing station to view something on camera just to make sure that they're seeing what I'm seeing. And this dude is just humping the ground hard to the point where like they needed.
Surprised he didn't break it.
Well, that's the thing. So they're like, this could cause whatever it is. And they needed more security to tie him down to the bed at this point. So I had to wait for backup to call. So they call backup, whatever. We rush in. It's like 4 a.m. Of course, we want to wake up other patients now. So we eventually we timed to the bed, and his penis had taken so much damage that the top of it was like purple, and it was like, I don't know if it was bent already, but it was definitely bent now. And I was like, this could not have felt good.
No, but imagine the blue balls that guy must have had.
Yeah, like
Jeez.
oh my
Purple
god.
dick, blue balls. I'll tell you one quick psych ward story that a guy actually who worked for me, he worked at a psych ward, and he was telling me a story kind of strange-ish, similar. So there was apparently this guy who was, I want to say blind.
Okay.
Maybe deaf, I don't know. Anyway, some guy. And it was his first week working there.
Oh yeah. Oh, the worst. The first week's
Right?
always the worst.
So everyone's messing with him.
Yeah.
So apparently he was like groaning and making all these sounds, and he was laying in his bed, and they were like, "You got to get his blanket off, and get him up to the shower." So he runs upstairs and he goes like, "Arr!" and gets his blanket, he pulls the blanket up, and he just jizzed all up in his face. And everyone, they called a bunch of the guys because they knew it was going to happen. They all laughed at him, and I was like, "That's got to be some sort of like sexual harassment."
Oh my god, it's like hazing to the extreme.
Right? But I guess he didn't want to go to the police and be like, so what happened? Well, a random guy jizzed in my face first day at work.
That's biological warfare, bro.
Right?
Like,
I just hope he got tested after that.
I was going to say, I mean, he would be in the place to get tested,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
like,
yeah.
brother, oh my God.
So at least you didn't get that. At least the guy didn't finish on you.
Yeah, definitely. I've had people propose to me. Yeah.
Men, women, everybody?
Men, women, yeah.
Yeah.
There was, I guess we're telling a second story real quick. There was another gentleman, hypersexual as well. He ended up finding my social media, which is weird. But this gentleman would like stroke it to anything. And they actually had to ban bananas in his unit because he was using them for
Sex toys?
But the thing is, it's a bit of a weird situation because you don't want to go in and interrupt
Someone doing that?
because it just sparks anger for the most part.
Right.
So you kind of have to let it
Let
be
them finish?
a little bit. Yeah. That's like the unofficial rule.
Yeah.
Especially if it's just for themselves, it's fine.
Yeah, not hurting anybody else, I guess.
But if it's somebody else, then you're just like, okay.
It's when they start hurting themselves like the other guy was.
Yeah.
That you have to jump in because like, he's going to,
Yeah.
cause damage to himself.
Which he did. But even there, like, it's one person, and you always have to be in a team. Like, there are certain things you can do, like, solo, but it's better to go as a unit just because it's easier, it's quicker, but you can never plan for these situations.
The world is a fun and interesting place.
That's why the government has to release all the documents, damn it.
And the psych ward might empty out. People will just be like, see, I told you, let me out.
Be like, oh, I'm so sorry, Todd.
Yeah, he was right.
It is the ground.
Anyways, thanks so much for being on the first episode. We're definitely going to do this again.
For sure, anytime.
And I don't know, how should we end it off? How do you usually end? I never watched the end of a podcast.
Oh, actually?
No, yeah.
So,
I get to like 95%. I'm like, I think I got all the important information.
So the end, usually what happens so it depends on the podcast. In the beginning or in the end, they'll have the guest plug their social medias. All right. So like my social media is.
Let's do that. Yeah.
There you go. Is at JUS10 Williams, WILLIAMS, on all social medias, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it. And then my podcast is Pro Sports Podcasters. And that's on every social media as well.
Do you do all sports?
Yeah, we can talk about everything from like curling to kickboxing to MMA to basketball. We cover everything. We had an Olympic fencer on one time.
Wow, that's pretty badass.
Yeah, it's not bad. We hit 10,000, and then Instagram did their whole like clearing bot system thing, where if there were bots following you, their accounts got deleted. So we were at like 10,000, like 5. Sorry, we celebrated. We're like, woo, 10,000. And then like 2-3 weeks later, that whole wave happened, and we're down to like 9,400. We're like,
Yeah, it wasn't that bad.
It's like 600 people, bro.
Yeah, it's not like you dropped down like 50% or something. It was like a 5% dip or something. It's not terrible.
Yeah, I mean,
it sucks because you were at the 10,000 mark that you were happy with, right? But
yeah, but so we
did you guys do PWHL?
Yeah, we actually did the PWHL before it was on ESPN with the Toronto Six. We were the official podcast for them.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
because I was talking to some people yesterday at the Leafs loss, and they were like, "Oh, there's no podcast about the PWHL. Maybe we should do that because they're all podcasters outside, like trying to do stuff about the Leafs game."
Brother,
I was I have no idea.
We did it when it was the NWHL.
Oh yeah,
right. We had it when it was Toronto Six. I have the original jersey signed by everybody from T6, like Michaela Grant Mentes. Like, fight me, bro. We were there.
Well, that's that. There you have it, folks. Right there, you have it, folks. There is a podcast about the PWHL.
That's it. I mean, I'm following it too. Toronto had a rough start in the beginning. Now they're like going to the finals.
Is it the finals coming up right now?
I believe it's the Final Four.
Final Four?
Yeah.
And what's the cup called? Is there a cup? Or?
So in the old one, it was the Isabel Cup.
Okay.
I'm not sure what this one is called.
All right, I got to check this out.
It's really
now
good.
That the Leafs are gone, what else am I going to do?
I mean, you can boo Boston.
I knew the Leafs. I was surprised they won a game.
I was surprised they went to the game 7.
Yeah, I was like maybe one game, but Boston was just a better team this year. So
they were a better team than us as a unit, but on paper they're not.
No.
But mark my words, today is May 5th. John Tavares and or Mitch Marner will not be a Leaf by the start of next season.
I hope not.
And Brendan Shanahan will be gone too.
Let's pray for small miracles, and then maybe the Leafs can move forward and do something different.
They got a second round, which was nice last year.
Yeah, but then we got in 10 years of the Shannon plan, 1 second round isn't good enough, right?
Yeah,
but that's for another podcast.
Another podcast.
We got to run to our show, so
we got to do it.
Thanks for watching, and we'll be back next time.
Cheers, guys.